Hello, everybody, and welcome to this webinar about managing uncertainty in the supply chain. This is the second attempt to this webinar, as Microsoft was experiencing technical difficulties last week on the Teams event platform. We had thousands of people trying to log in, weren't unable actually to log in and start their events. So seems to be all under control right now, so we can start. My name is Finnur Bragason. I'm the sales director at AGR. And today I'm going to be taking you through how AGR can help manage the effects of COVID-19 on your supply chain. Now, a few practical things before we start. You should have a Q&A bar on your right-hand side. I have some of my colleagues, both from the sales team and technical team, answering questions, so feel free to pose any questions while we go through this as we go along, and they'll try to answer your questions. Now, to start off with, I have a few slides to tell you about who we are as a company, our customers, and kind of the methodology that we use behind supply chain management and inventory optimization. And then I wanted to go into the solution itself, show you the main features and how our customers have been using a system like this to manage the current challenges within the supply chain. Now, who are we? AGR is a supply chain planning and forecasting expert. We're quite vertically focused. This is the only thing that we do and have been doing this for over 20 years. We split the company mainly into two parts. On one hand, we have the software development. We develop the AGR software completely in-house. And then we have consultancy services, both around implementing the software, but also around supply chain management issues, working with the solution. We do supply chain management courses, both to our customer base, but also we work with universities around the world to deliver custom classes around the topic. Now, our head office is based in Iceland. This is where most of the development occurs. But our main markets are UK and Scandinavia, where we run offices along with Canada and France. In other areas, we work through a network of partners who sell and implement and service our software. Now, the AGR system is an add-on to your current ERP system. So we assume that the main data registration occurs and resides within the ERP system. And then we offer standard data connectors to, for example, the Microsoft stack, to both NAV, AX, and D365. But we can also, on a customized way, connect to more or less any other ERP system. Now, a little bit on our customer base. These are just a few customers that we have been working closely with for the last year, of course, but also recently in the current environment. We can roughly split the customer base up into two groups. On one hand, we have wholesale and distribution companies, where we are creating forecasts and managing purchase orders from central warehouses to external suppliers. On the other hand, we have retail companies where we are doing both the purchase order to external vendors, but also managing the distribution from the warehouse to the stores or transfer orders. Now, on the retail end, we have customers with ranging from a few stores up to more than 1,000 stores. But I'm not going to go into detail with each and every one of these. If you want to learn more about these customers, we have case studies available on our website, which you can access. Now, on the retail end, we have quite a few modules available. We can do financial planning, for example, ranging, option planning, and merchandise financials for example, for fashion retailers. But for this webinar, we're going to focus mainly on the core process, which is the following. Now, as I have explained before, we assume that the main data registration resides within the ERP system. So that's where the data comes from. We then have an expert forecasting module. So the system looks at all of the existing sales history and automatically selects from a pool of algorithms and forecasting methods to create a demand forecast moving forward. Now, on top of the demand forecast, we also calculate safety stock requirements based on target service levels. I'll take you through this process as well as our exception reporting module, where we can find out the kind of areas that we want to take a closer look at, followed by the planning module. And then once we have created a demand forecast, we can then translate that forecast into either a transfer order or purchase order. So taking into account all of the order parameters, such as minimum order quantities, lead times, and so forth. Now, this is roughly the process that I'm going to take you through in the system, but I'm going to then focus on some specific areas that we have been helping some of our customers with in the last weeks and months due to the current challenges from COVID-19. And these, we can split them up into 4 areas. So initially, it is the demand smoothing part. Now, we've been seeing a massive shift in demand, mainly depending on the essential items and non-essentials. So we can see for the essential items, we can see great sales peaks in the demand, while in other areas, the demand is completely dropping. It can be because of the specific items or, of course, because of store closings. So I'm going to take you through how we can manage the demand smoothing, both on a manual basis and also how we can do this automatically, because this is the most important thing to getting the forecast correct moving forward, to adjust the sales history to reflect what we expect to happen in the future. Now, the second part, when we have gone through the demand, we've smoothed that out, we want to rerun our ABC analysis and estimate our safety stock moving forward. So I'll take you a little bit through the ABC tool that we have built into the system and how we can assess our target service levels and adjust them, and how we can utilize the what-if analysis through our simulation tool to estimate what the changes or what the effects of the changes will be before we apply them into the real-life scenario. Now, moving forward, of course, we want to see how we can scale up order volumes for the correct items. So this, again, we can look at exception reports to identify specific items, but also how we can look at purchase orders, unconfirmed purchase orders, and how we can scale that up depending on different criteria. Now, the last part will be order management. These are analyzing which orders can be expedited or which orders can be cancelled. We have developed specific reports, move in and move out reports, to identify the effects of the demand changes and how we can manage the orders accordingly to either try to get them in faster or push the orders out. Now, this was the PowerPoint. So moving into the system itself, Now logging on, you'll see that the system is completely web-based, accessed through a web browser. Once the users log in, they're presented with a dashboard that shows them an overview of the supply chain and of their inventory setup. We have some key reports here on the left-hand side. We can highlight which reports we want to have visible here, so we can see how many items are out of stock, how many new items we have, and so forth. Then we have some standard KPIs. We can see how the overall service level of the company is, stock levels, sales, and so forth. We can even move forward to filter this down to specific locations or specific vendors. Now, to start off, I wanted to go through the demand forecast and how we manage that. Now, to start off, I want to show you how we present this data graphically. So here I'm located in a specific warehouse. I'll get a list of the items that are available from that warehouse. And if I click on a specific item, we'll get a graphic display of how that item is behaving. Now, if I hover my mouse, here we can see this is today. And on the left-hand side, I have the sales history. And then based on this sales history, the system is automatically creating a forecast moving forward. Now, I'm displaying the data here in months, but we can also drill down to weeks and days. If I go into an item here, item number 2, and I'll give you an example of this is an item that has a relatively stable sales history, but we can see here during a specific period, there is a demand spike. Now the system is forecasting that the same will happen in the future. Now, this can be, like we've seen, this can be an unexpected spike and a spike that we don't expect to happen in the future. So in this case, we can edit the sales history. So I can drag this column down. Now, the system will then recalculate the forecast to smooth that out, while we still keep the original sales quantity as a reference point. Now here I'm doing this in quite a manual way, but we have, through exception management, the system can identify these items automatically. But furthermore, we can apply global rules to automatically smooth this demand peak down. Now this is one of the most important things with a forecasting system, to manage the demand properly and look at this both on an item level, but we can do this on an aggregate level as well through the planning system. So both for individual items, we can look at specific item groups or specific locations and manage the demand in a way like this. Now, we can, of course, manage the demand in both ways. If we have slumps in demand, like here, again, I'm showing this in a manual way, but of course, we can apply automatic demand smoothing to pull the demand up. Now, we can add some additional information to this graph. We can look at how the stock history was. We can see here that actually during this period, there was no stock. So this could be actually for the specific items, the reason why we didn't have any sales, because the supplier couldn't deliver to us. So that's also a reason why we want to smooth the demand out. Now, once we have adjusted the forecast, the system knows here how many items I have on hand, and it knows what the forecast is moving forward. So in this case, we can look at the estimated stock. And if we zoom in here to this item, we can see that if I take no action, I will run out of this item here by June 1st. Now, in addition to the forecast, the system will calculate the safety stock for the order period. Now, the safety stock is something that we have to look at as well when we are changing the demand and we're looking at more volatile sales history. So in this case, we have a built-in ABC tool where we can calculate and recalculate the ABC analysis to see which items we want to focus on, which are the most important items. So in this case, we can see some of the parameters we can use. So we can calculate ABC both on profit, sales units, and turnover. So we can apply a simple, just a standard ABC analysis, but we can add more complexity to the analysis to add categories, but we can also do a 2 and sometimes 3-folded analysis to combine both profit and turnover or unit sales and turnover. Now, once we've recalculated the ABC calculations, we can look at the settings, and here we can edit the confidence factor settings for each category. Now, the confidence factor is roughly the target service level we want to achieve for each classification here in the ABC. So for my A items here, I want to achieve a 95% target service level. Now, before I set this, I can use the simulation tool to estimate the effects of these changes. Now, the input that we can change in this simulation, or sometimes called what-if analysis, here I can change the new confidence factor settings, but I can also change the order frequency and the minimum order quantities and lead times. So I can play around with these numbers. I can filter down to specific locations, product groups, and see the results. And the output of these results will then be the estimated total stock quantity and total stock value. Now, once we're happy with the calculations, the estimates, we can then apply that to the real life scenarios, and we can see how that works. Just to give you another example here of how we do this manually, here we can see an item that has relatively low safety stock. If I go here behind the settings, I can also manually change this here. I can override this and take the target service level up to 98%. When I save this, we can see that the blue line should jump up here. So here we're adjusting the safety stock calculations to meet these target service level settings. Now, moving forward into the reporting section, we have a long list of standard reports available in the system. We can look at, for example, items that have a sales peak. This is my previous example when we have a big change in the demand. The system can identify these items automatically, so we don't need to scroll through all of our items. We have some stock reports here as well, but I wanted to show you how easy it is to create a report and how we can manipulate them on the fly. So if I try to identify an item that gives me all of my items that are in risk of stock out, give this a name here. The next part is to select the columns that we want to have visible. So I want the ABC analysis, I want the item group, see the primary vendor as well. And we want to look at some sales quantities from last month. So the next part is to set the filters. So as explained previously, we have a a pre-calculated column here that has the days cover on hand. So this means because we know what the forecast is, we know what the safety stock requirements are and the current stock levels. So the system will pre-calculate how many days cover we have of each item in each stock location. So in this case here, I want to see all of the items that will last me 3 days or less in stock. So we can see here on the bottom right-hand side that we have 261 items that meet this criteria. We can then proceed to filter them down to, for example, item groups, and then the primary vendor. So we can see that here, for example, under this product group, we have 60 items from this particular vendor that are in risk of stockout. Now, I can highlight this part of the report, and I can manually create an order directly from this report. But what we do and what we recommend is to set up order groups for the different vendors that we have in the system. So in this case, we create order groups so we can define the vendors. So here I'm going to filter down on a specific vendor. And we then go into the order schedules, and here I can schedule an order for this particular vendor. So I can schedule this vendor to be purchased every other day, or we can go to a monthly level and order this vendor every month except July and August because of summer holidays. And because of payment terms, I want to order on the 10th of each month. So this means on the 10th of January, the system knows that my next order date is 10th of February. So it will look at the forecast, safety stock calculations, current stock, what's on order, undelivered, and calculate the most optimal order quantity to cover this order period. But on the 10th of June, the system knows I'm not ordering in July and August. So it will then suggest an order quantity to cover a 3-month period. Now going into the orders, so this is what the system will show me when I go in here. We'll get a list of all of the unconfirmed purchase orders. And if I click on a specific order, I'll get a list of the items that belong to that order. So if I click on a specific item, we can see here we have on the graph, if I zoom in, we have the order quantity, and we can see how many days this will last us in sale. This will last us until June 17th. Now going back to the report, on the unconfirmed purchase orders, we can then identify through the move in and move out reports. We can see here that for this particular item, we have a gap, demand gap. So we would potentially want to expedite this order to get it sooner in to cover this demand. But we can at the same time identify the purchase orders where the demand has gone down, and we would want to push those orders out. Now going through some of the parameters we have visible here, we have the items, we have the system calculated order quantity, which we can of course override here manually. We have some stock information, the days cover, but we can add columns here to the view. If I want to see the ABC classifications here, I want to see the estimated delivery date, or probably the total value. Once we have created a view that we're happy with, we can save that view as a quick edit view or a standard view. Now, in terms of focusing on the right items to go through, we can take all of the columns here. We can simply drag them on top, as I did before, and the system will then classify them. So if we take the ABC analysis here, so here I have grouped this based on the ABC analysis. So here I get all the A items. So we can then go through them if we want to manage them, go through them one by one. Now, additionally, we might want to ramp up the order quantities on my A items, or we can actually classify them and group them depending on any criteria that we have. So we would use here the constraint option for this. So here we can actually tell the system to let the we can do here surpass. So we can say let the order be at least cover a 14-day have 14-day cover. So we can constrain the orders up both on number of days, quantity or value, but also if for example we are doing container optimization, we can tell the system to set the number of pallets to be less than 12 items, 12 pallets, and then we can fill up with the lightest items. Now, once I'm then happy with the order, I simply confirm it here, and then it is sent to the ERP system and managed to the vendors as we would do normally. Now, we only have half an hour to go through this, so we have a long list of additional features, of course, within the system. One of the parts that we did not go through here today was the planning part. Here we can look at additional criteria, group items together. We have the financial planning system here as well. We can create purchase plans and many more. This was just to give you a flavor of how the system works. We would be happy to set up with you a more customized demo. I have here my sales team on the call with us. You can see them. Please feel free to contact any of them to set up a more detailed demo if you want to dive deeper into some of the functionality you've seen today. Otherwise, I would like to advertise our next demo, which will be next week. That demo will focus solely on the financial planning feature we have within AGR. We will add a link to that demo to the Eventbrite site just after this presentation. So feel free to register for that. I'm going to keep the presentation running for a while in case there are any questions that we're answering, but otherwise I would like to thank you for your time today and hopefully see you back next week for the financial planning demo. Thank you.